Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the agenda review and approval.
Madam Chair, could we move the compensation study implementation options ahead of the consent agenda?
We can, if there is a motion, and do other folks have discussion items?
Is that a motion, Ms. Byer?
I move that we move the discussion of compensation study implementation options to just after general public comment.
I'd second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor of the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is our Board of Education minutes from January 11th, 2024.
Move approval of the minutes from January 11th.
Second.
There's been a motion to approve and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. Oh, any opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, we now move to our general public comment. And okay, a review of the rules for this evening. And I apologize. I did not announce that our interpreters for tonight are Marty Ramirez and Vanessa Peña Ramirez. So thank you. Thank you to them for interpreting for us this evening. So our public comment rules, a quick review. Please first state your name. If speaking for an organization, please state your name and the name of the organization. Secondly, speakers are asked to present their comments in the time we are allotting, which tonight will be 1 minute. When the yellow light comes on, you will have 30 seconds left to start winding up your remarks. When the red light comes on, it will beep, which indicates that your time is up. Complaints about named staff, students, or parents should not be voiced in open session. However, we are very interested in hearing your concerns with regard to public education, safety of students, or the operation of the school system. Finally, the board members will listen carefully and consider the comments, but we do not engage in a discussion with speakers. And I will call 3 people at a time. So the people who are up next can get ready. The first person is Denise Prine. Prince. Katora Mason is second, and then Tammy Phillips. Not yet.
Yes, and I can see my time to Katora Mason.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Katoria Mason. I can see my time to Tammy Phillips.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Tammy Phillips. I am the area manager for transportation at Northern Division. Let me give you a little history about myself. I'm a 27-year veteran with DPS, all of which has been with transportation. Nothing has ever been given to me. I worked my way up from a bus driver to area manager. I feel as though all the hard work and sacrifices I've made and my years of dedication mean absolutely nothing to DPS. No matter which offer, no matter which of the 2 options you presented at the last meeting would mean that a veteran like me would lose tremendously. If you go back to my salary in July, minus my hold harmless, and add an additional percentage with the state's 4%, my salary would be what it was originally in July with the hold harmless amount plus a few extra dollars. Placing your veterans in a position of non-equitable distribution of funds that will not change before our retirement date. Hold harmless was explained in the last meeting. However, I feel you did not get a full grasp on how it works. I was in hold harmless status for 5 consecutive years up until the salary change in October. If given a state raise, the percentage given is calculated using your salary minus the hold harmless amount. If DPS gives a raise, your hold harmless is supposed to lessen each raise until you meet that state salary schedule. 5 years and mine did not, because DPS tweaked the salary schedule, throwing me even further behind. So how long will it last? I will be retired by the time DPS decides to give another raise to lessen my hold harmless, and so will others in my shoes. It isn't hold harmless. It's hold helpless. I'm not sure I can continue to work for a system that thinks only of itself and not the hard work, dedication, and well-being of its employees. It has been proven repeatedly that the classified workers are the tail end of the dog in DPS, and now we are left to feel like the pile left behind that dog to be discarded in the trash. We continue to be discriminated against and treated unfairly. If we must endure at hands of the board a lesser pay for the remainder of the fiscal year, then we ask that you give us the one-on-one Hill study with years of experience for the upcoming fiscal years to follow. I've not seen that on your list of options. You have 4.5 months to tweak your budget and obtain the money needed to make it work for us, like you tweak our salary schedule year after year to make it work for you. I have become physically ill, mentally exhausted since the announcement that our salary raises were going to be revoked. I am a household of 2 DPS classified salary employees, so this affects my entire household. What I don't understand is how DPS spent over $3 million on a salary study that was approved and implemented, and now that approval and implementation can be just dismissed, throwing millions of dollars in the trash. So is DPS really broke? When will this end? DPS cannot continue to rob Peter to pay rich Paul. There is only one option. Give us the Hill study salary we
Thank
deserve
you.
and
Thank you. Thank you. The next person is Stephanie Haver, followed by Andre Obi, followed by Tiffany Smiley.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Haver, and I am the mom to 3 DPS students, all of whom have IEPs. I am so grateful to highly trained professionals at every level who work with our family. We owe them so much, and that's why this situation has enraged the community. I appreciate the board's investigation. I did read it. But we need to figure out first how to fix it, and secondly, how to ensure this never happens again. At the end of the day, the responsibility lays squarely on the board's shoulders. In every level of leadership, leaders rely on information from people they hire, and there are times that they make poor decisions as a result of poor information. The board is not here to rubber stamp a budget, and before implementing anything, they should use every math teacher's motto, show me your work. Put policies in place to ensure there are safety nets to prevent future communication breakdowns. Don't hire people who lack communication skills, wreak havoc, and require your silence when they leave with $297,000 in their pocket. In the meantime, go through that budget. Please go through that budget line by line and find the money to pay what the community agreed to. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Andre Obi, and I am an instructional assistant and a football coach at Riverside High School. I have worked hard to motivate and encourage these students to believe in themselves and their future. On any given day, I could be asked to change diapers, do tube feed, administer medicine, or restrain a violent student. This job is not easy, but it is important, and I am not easily replaced. When I accepted this position at Riverside, I did so with the expectation that my pay would be based on my relevant work history. Instead, I've been moved down to 19 total steps, and my pay has been cut. In January, you promised that our paychecks would be the same as December's. Mine was $400 short. My mother taught me never to trust a liar and a thief, and you've done both. Accepting the resignation of our superintendents and CFO, however, has not solved the problem. The only way to solve this is to give us our money back
Thank
and
you.
be transparent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have Tiffany Smiley, followed by Zach Levy and Mark Franklin.
I'm Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach.
I cede my time to Zach.
I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede my time to Tiffany. I cede my time to Zach. I cede Good evening, members of the board, Dr. King. My name is Zach Levy, and I'm a nurse with DPS, speaking on behalf of the rest of the DPS nurses. You remember the global pandemic? You remember when nurses were heroes? I do, because I was there on the front lines, in the hospital, in this very community, along with these other nurses. We may have had different roles, but our experience is valid. We're not asking for special treatment, just what is fair. We understand that mistakes were made. We've heard the term hemorrhage bandied about. Here's another medical term for you. Hemostasis achieved. Now let's fix it. We're aware that however much we want to keep our promised raises, it's not fiscally sound. I come before you this evening with a proposal for a raise that is equitable. After all, a rising tide lifts all boats. We want our years of experience returned to us. We want a minimum 15% raise for all classified employees across the board. Finally, I'd like to speak for myself and offer thanks to all of the parents and the staff, particularly those from my school, Merrick Moore, whose paychecks weren't necessarily affected, but who have stood in solidarity with us. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Mark Franklin, followed by Rachel Beebe, Cheryl Catlin.
My name is Mark Franklin, and I am an IA at Parkwood. I have a BA in education, an MA in administration. I've been an urban educator for over 30 years. And the last year has been an IA at Parkwood. 1 minute isn't inadequate for me to express what I'm feeling, so I'll just speak from the heart here. What's happened with the classified personnel is really terrible. And I happen to be lucky because next Monday I'm leaving after you've stripped me from 27 steps down to 4. So I'm fortunate. There's hundreds of us, including people I know, that it's awful what has happened. And you need to make it right. It's very simple.
Thank you.
My name is Rachel Beebe, and I cede my time to Shelley Vitas. My name is Cheryl Catlin, and I cede to Shelley.
Yeah, Shelley is next. Thank you.
Want to announce the next two people?
Oh, sure. Thank you. After Shelley is Quentin Heaton and Crystal Moore. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shelley Vitas, and I'm an occupational therapist with 27 years experience and have proudly served the last 15 at Durham Public Schools alongside my esteemed occupational therapy colleagues. As you all are aware, there is strong competition for employees, and it is a challenge in this job market to remain competitive. UNC, Duke Health, private sector jobs, and nearby school districts all compete with Durham Public Schools. The DPS OT department has long-standing partnerships with UNC, Duke Medical, ECU, Winston-Salem State, and Durham Tech, and have proudly hosted fieldwork students from their OT programs. We recruit many of our OT staff from these fieldwork placements. We are well known for our experience, our knowledge, mentorship, our co-practice model, all of which attracts new grads and OTs with valuable experience to join our team. However, we have lost staff and have been unable to add new staff on our team because the salary package offered by HR is not competitive. As part of the interviewing team for new hires, I interviewed an experienced OT from another school district who was looking to work closer to home in Durham. She was very interested in joining our team to promote how we support students transitioning from high school into the workforce. Unfortunately, she declined the position after meeting with HR. The salary study was completed for a reason, and those reasons remain valid today. Durham Public Schools needs to offer a fair, equitable, and competitive wage in order to recruit and retain qualified occupational therapists. I'll leave you with this. Our knowledge and training matters. Respect our years of experience. The uncertainty of our paychecks is stressful. No changes to our February paychecks. And our trust in this administration has been broken. Make room at the table for our voice to be represented.
Thank you. We have Quentin Heaton, Crystal Moore, and then Anna Berg.
My name is Quentin Hedden. I concede my time to Crystal Moore.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Moore, and I am an EC teacher at Riverside High School. Over the weekend, I asked for information about superfluous district spending, but received so many responses that I could not keep up. So instead, I'll say this. The cornerstone of the foundation of public education is free and appropriate public education. Do you know what that is? I hope so. I hope that by now you do. My question then is, how do you plan to provide for students to receive this civil right under the U.S. Department of Education without classified staff? If you do not honor your own policy, which today still stands as one-to-one steps, you do not honor your workers. How can you expect them to continue to work for you? Without them, you cannot hope to fulfill FAPE. We learned in COVID-19 that schools are the cornerstone of the community. Restore the trust of your community at the same time you fulfill your duty by working with the community to build better schools by restoring full steps and pay. You say that you do not have the money to do so, but you just hired a six-figure comptroller and paid out a six-figure severance pay. I don't think that the problem is that you don't have money. I think the problem is you don't know how to spend it.
Thank you. Now we have Anna Berg, then Sherry Broderick, and Barbara Tapper.
Excuse me. Hello, my name is Anna Berg. I'm a physical therapist serving students across 8 to 10 sites each year. I'm also a DAE member. I want you to know that I love my job. I love seeing a smile on a student's face when they first learn to walk or even stand on their own. And if they cannot stand or walk on their own, I help them get the right equipment so they can participate in their education alongside their peers. I have been a licensed physical therapist for 22 years and with DPS for 11 years. But now I'm demoted to step 9. Year after year, our wages have been stagnant. The wage increases given in October were long overdue, and finally, we felt heard and valued. There were 10 physical therapists in the district. Now we have 9. Our colleague with over 40 years experience resigned her position as of Monday due to this recent crisis. If we are not respected and paid at a market rate, more of my colleagues will be leaving, and it will be difficult to fill those vacancies. Thank you.
After Barbara Tapper, we have Joy Teasley.
My name is Sherry Broderick, and I cede my minute to Barbara Tapper.
Hi, welcome, Dr. King. Y'all have seen my face numerous times up here and heard my story going from 31 years or steps to 11 in spite of working for Durham Public Schools for 25 years. In the same position, with the same students, with the same job responsibilities, and now I'm at an 11. Right now, you have a decision in front of you, and making that decision, you should know that many of us have applied for other jobs, changed our resume, and talked with families and the community about impending decisions. I am a member of the DAE, and the DAE is not only for teachers and certified staff. Parents can join at a reduced rate. Custodians, cafeteria workers have joined, all classified staff, not just an educator as a teacher. As part of your agreement to meet and confer with the DAE, we need a date for that to happen. and we must keep our raise for February, and our steps must be restored and fair pay restored and to honor longevity and experience. I maintain and my colleagues maintain state licensure with continuing education credits that are required to do my job at Durham Public Schools. You pay for neither of these. You don't pay for my malpractice insurance every year or my license renewal, yet I'm required to have these credentials to work for you, to serve the children of Durham Public Schools. You don't recognize them financially. Your ability to lead is being tested, and the outcome that you decide will determine whether our children get a free and appropriate public education. Your report analyzing the classified study last night mentions that human resources and finance departments didn't communicate correctly. Human resources should answer to this problem, as well as the superintendent that you paid to leave. Their pay or steps weren't affected. Last night was a start. However, there are people responsible for these problems that are not being held accountable.
Thank you. Next, we have Joy Teasley, followed by Angelique Parkstone, followed by Christy Clem.
My name is Joy Teasley. I'm an IA and DN classroom at Southwest Elementary School. I'm also a member of the Durham Association of Educators. I'm here because the following demands of the DAE must be met. We need an explanation of the January checks and full payment of the February checks as they were promised in October. I came to DPS 3 years ago with 13 years of lead teaching experience outside of DPS. I deserve credit for this experience. We all do. On January 25th, I met with a member of the HR department. She stated that she could not tell me if my salary stated on the January 14th email from DPS was correct. I still don't know if my check was correct or not. I have not received any communication. We need an explanation for the checks. On January, we need February's to be correct.
After Christy Clem, we'll have Amy Bass. So, and sorry to clarify, Angelique Parkstone is next, and then Christy Clem, and I was just calling the next person, Amy Bass. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Angelique Parkstone. I'm the cafeteria manager at Glen Elementary. I would like to take this opportunity to tell you what impact your decision could play on my life if you vote for option A, option 1 or option 2. My father is a very sick man. He has leukemia. For the last year and a half, my father has been receiving blood transfusions every 2 weeks. They are not cheap. Receiving chemo treatments is not cheap. My father only gets Social Security, and it isn't a lot of money, so I help with his bills on top of my bills. I was really looking for another job until I got this raise because the way underpaid for my 20-plus years. In closing, I want you to consider this. A compensation study was done based on the cost of living. On one or more occasions, the statement has been made that some employees got significant pay raises. Does that not open your eyes?
Thank you. And you're welcome to leave the rest of your statement if you'd like for us to read. You can leave it on the table and we'll get it. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Christy Clem. I'm a physical therapist in my 8th year with DPS and a current DAE member. I've not always been a member in my 8 years, but even during that time, I've always felt represented by them. As a non-member, I was able to go to school reps to ask questions and discuss concerns. The president of DAE at that time met with me several times one-on-one and took my concerns about PT's low pay to the head of finance and the head of HR, and then followed up with me. So even as a non-member, I have no doubt that DAE represents all employees of DPS, and I support a formal seat at the table for that. Also support full pay for February. I'm ready for this to be over. My mental, emotional health and physical fatigue is never been like it is before, but I don't want y'all to rush and make a decision without having all the information. And picking option 1 or 2 is going to do that. It's also going to cause more employees to leave and lead to our staffing shortage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Amy Bass, followed by Bethany Ferguson and Lauren Sartain.
Hi, my name is Amy Bass. I've worked for DPS for 25.3 years. I am one of the few not affected by this egregious debacle. I stand here united with my brothers and sisters in my DPS family. I have a feeling that once you vote, I will be affected, and I'm scared. This will affect my retirement, which is not far off for me, and it hurts. As parents, we do right by our family. Sometimes what feels best is not what is right. This is your family. How about if you can't find the funds to manage our current salaries, one option, you haven't mentioned it, is the 2-to-1 for private sector and fix the budget and accommodate the salaries in July. The option 2 with 11% is going to affect everybody, some of them even harder than what they are now, including myself. All I ask is you do right by your family. Norman Schwarzkopf said, true courage is being afraid, but going ahead and doing your job anyhow. Your job is to take care of your family. Do right.
Thank you. And after Lauren Sartain will be Elizabeth Jones. But up next is Bethany Ferguson.
Hi, I'm Bethany Pergerson. I'm a speech therapist on the preschool assessment team. I'm a proud DAE member. I stand with all DPS classified staff in solidarity. But I would like to speak specifically for the staff of the Multilingual Resource Center and Celia Mora. I just want to say that their working conditions are unacceptable. They have no running water or bathrooms. When they were smelling fumes, they requested over and over again for a carbon monoxide monitor, and they could not find a battery for months. When a pregnant staff member finally brought in a CO2 monitor, it immediately registered unsafe levels, and they had to evacuate the building. When a staff member became so sick that she had to go to the ER, the DPS said that they could not pay for her medical bills because it was not a workplace injury. This is unacceptable. DPS must do better by its workers, the only thing that keeps this system running. We are literally sick and definitely tired of this pitiful.
Thank you so much. After Elizabeth Jones will be Mercedes Irvin.
My name is Lauren Sartain. I'm a DPS parent of 2 kids who I just learned won't be in school for the 2nd time this week, and I yield my time to Elizabeth.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Jones. I'm a DPS parent. I teach at Glen Elementary, and I'm a DAE member. Over a year ago, I was here to speak in support of raises for our classified workers. I was at the county commissioners meeting soon after that, asking for raises for DPS classified workers. I'm here for a 3rd time, now pleading that you give our classified workers the raises that you promised in October. Please pay people what they were promised. I understand you're hesitant to use the rainy day fund, but right now it's pouring. Spend your savings so that your employees don't have to pay for others' mistakes. It is clear that the board is taking this matter very seriously. Thank you for actions you've already taken. Thank you for agreeing to meet with DAE. Now pay your employees what you promised.
Thank you. We have Mercedes Irvin, and then Heidi Jo Hetland and Dr. Jennifer Gurich.
Good evening. My name is Mercedes Irvin. I am an instructional assistant, EC instructional assistant. This crisis has caused me a lot of anxiety. Classified staff such as myself, physical therapists, and nurses, just to name 2, yet specialists in their field provide instructional assistance and teachers with instruction and education on operating feeding pumps for students with G-tubes. We are trained in skin checks, potty training, administering medication, and how to safely use adaptive equipment. The thought of money being taken away from our paychecks put so many people in panic mode. We are 10-month employees and not able to collect unemployment. My friends and coworkers were saying, I'm leaving. I can't afford this pay cut. I already have 2 jobs. I'm sleeping in my car. They don't respect us, our history, our time. If they did this, what else would they do? I hope you all rebuild trust by working with DAE so that transparency and clarity is achieved and we can be And we,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You can leave your comments too if you would like. Thank you. All right, Heidi Jo Hetland, Dr. Jennifer Gearrich, and Julia Jackson is next.
Good evening. I'm Heidi Jo Hetland, a physical therapist in Durham schools and a proud DAE member. Now that the investigation results have been shared, it is abundantly clear that safeguards, checks, and balances must be implemented to prevent a repeat of this gross oversight, lack of clarity, and communication. Our steps should remain unchanged. Your exhausted classified staff should not have to spend a single second jumping through hoops to prove our valuable, relevant experience that were verified when we were hired. Our salary options should not rely on the elimination of either the costly Hill study or our valuable steps. Other options must be found. Classified employees have made plans and life-altering decisions with salaries promised in October, and we demand that they remain same for February. We also demand that high priority be placed on explaining and correcting all of the errors from our January paychecks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Dr. Jennifer Gearrich, Julia Jackson, followed by Susan Beerholm. Dr. Jennifer Gearrich? No? Okay, we'll go on to the next person. Julia Jackson?
Good evening. My name is Julia Jackson. I work at R.N. Harris Elementary School as a kindergarten instructional assistant, and I am a proud DAE member. I'm also a widow and single parent of 14 years. I was hired at DPS back in the mid-90s because of my experience at the Durham County Youth Home. I had worked at Whitaker School, which is a part of John Umstead Hospital in Butner, and I had worked at Elon Homes for Children. So now my steps are being reduced, and I don't understand that. Excuse me. It's like that doesn't even exist. Like I never worked at those places. I've worked, when I came to Durham Public Schools, I worked as an EC.
Thank you. If you have comments you want to leave with us, you may, or email the board if you have other comments you'd like to share. Thank you so much. Next is Susan Beerholm, followed by Chandria Myers, followed by Ivy Staten.
My name is Susan. I yield my time to Chandria. My name is Chandra Myers. I'm going to give my time to Ms. Ivy.
My name is Ivy Jo Staten. First, I'd like to address the statement made last week about getting a new salary study. Why? This one was clear. When the salary of the classified staff is compared to comparable positions in Durham County, city, and the private sector, you can see that the classified staff began making a competitive wage with the new salary implementation in October, which included total years of experience. Fiscal responsibility has been mentioned numerous times. Fiscal responsibility, in simple terms, means using your money wisely. So let's talk numbers. My understanding is that the additional cost of payroll rolled out October to January, including the lump sum checks for July through September, equaled approximately the $4.5 million that was then transferred over from the DPS fund balance or their savings account. If that's the case, then the additional compensation adds approximately $650,000 a month to payroll. Ms. Ojijo mentioned that it would cost approximately $700,000 to keep February paychecks in alignment with November through January checks. So I assume I'm in the ballpark with these figures. Following these numbers, approximately $3.5 million is needed to fund February through June until we have a new budget for the 24-25 school year. If this money was also transferred from the fund balance, it would leave approximately $2.9 million in the account and keep the valuable staff at DPS with competitive market wages. Then when you bring the new budget for 24-25 to the county commissioners for approval, you can include the additional 7.3 million to sustain implementing the Hill study with one-to-one experience, which are the numbers Dr. Lassane shared at the last board meeting. 3.5 million to keep our valuable staff working, schools open and running properly, and of importance also to keep the integrity of Durham Public Schools. 3.5 million, and then asking for the proper amount for the next school year, allocating it correctly, and making sure that you as a school board do not make quick decisions based on feeling rushed, but asking the in-depth questions that provide a clear and factual overview of the situation so that something so incredibly demoralizing never happens again. 3.5 million is what we're asking. This is what is required to bring classified staff who have been chronically underpaid for years to competitive market wages and to restore their faith in Durham Public Schools. 3.5 million to maintain salaries this year and asking for 7.3 million to sustain these salaries next year. That is what we're asking and expecting. If you're not willing to do this, the question is why.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Jeff Seelin, Hannah Ball Damberg, and Landon Tilley.
Jeff Seelin. I cede my time to Hannibal Damberg.
My name is Hannibal Damberg. I am a former DPS student, a classified employee, a proud DAE member, and a farm educator at the DPS Hub Farm. We are the district's outdoor learning center, and we serve 3,000 DPS students a year, and I've worked there for 6 years. I lost 8 steps on January 13th, but I'm here on behalf of all classified DPS workers, many of whom were impacted more gravely than I. The board did not do their due diligence during the October 12th work session. You voted 6-1 on a verbal presentation given by the CFO despite utter confusion and lack of documentation. You watched as our steps were inexplicably removed on January 11th without a gesture toward finding an adequate solution and continue to rely on insufficient pay proposals from finance and HR. The actual cost to keep everyone at their proper step is exaggerated in yesterday's report. It costs $4.5 million to finance raises from July to January. $3.5 million covers our pay through the rest of the fiscal year. The board needs to immediately call for a joint session with the county commissioners to request these funds from their unassigned general fund balance, allowable under county fiscal policy in the event of an emergency. The district has entirely lost credibility, is hemorrhaging talented classified employees, and will struggle to recruit equally talented staff. This is a financial and mental health crisis. Our students are the reason we work underpaid, overexploited jobs as public school employees. They deserve the very best, and we believe endlessly in our children's power, leadership, and brilliance. The narrative, think of the children, must shift to include the workers. If workers can't meet their own basic needs, then our schools are not great places to learn. We can't provide quality education if we aren't included in the chain of care. We must not only think of the children, but workers too.
Thank you. Next, we have Landon Tilley, Amy Toney, and Donna Ham.
My name is Landon Tilley, and I cede my time to Amy Toney.
My name is Amy Toney, and I cede my time to Donna Ham.
And after Donna will be Amira Nada, Elnora Jones, and Celia Mora.
Good evening. My name is Donna Ham, and I'm the manager of the records department. My staff are 2 technicians, and I supervise the district's 53 records specialists at the school level. At the elementary level, we have 32 records specialists who also hold down the role of the school's data manager. They hold 2 positions, are being compensated for only 1. Of the 12 middle schools, 8 hold the positions of records and data. Of the 13 high schools, 4 hold the positions of records and data. As the record specialist, you continually send and receive records. The flow never ceases. I ran a report which shows that 1,944 students have left our district since August 30th. If you are one of these schools who seems to have a revolving door, your job is overwhelming, like Parkwood with 65, Bethesda with 52, Eastway with 49, and let's not forget our middle schools who are also doing double duty. Neal has 90 and Lowe's Grove with 86. If this wasn't enough to keep up with, let me share with you the additional duties being asked of our record staff. Administering medications, front desk duty, answering phones, doors, intercoms, radio, recess duty, lunch duty, ordering supplies, principal admin, maintain the school's website, test proctor, picture day, and dental program scheduling, school interpreter, translator, assignment of keys, manage school calendars, call for subs, sub in the classroom, and assist in card line. In October of 2023, the salary study was implemented. In November, I began my records audit, visiting all of our schools in person, and what did I find? I found positivity across the board, witnessed growth of understanding of procedures, discovered that the record specialists are being inventive. They are all contributing new and fresh ideas regarding records. And let me add, we're not only about records, but I discovered that in many of the schools, the cooperation between the record specialists and the tech champions were at a high level. And if they weren't, then we discussed how to make it so. Everyone, including me, had that feeling of, yes, DPS values me. Yes, DPS sees my worth. Then we had January 12th. I can share that the light is gone for many, me included. Several are already looking for other jobs. Why should they stay when they're not valued and tremendously overworked? I have no answer to say, but I will give them a strong recommendation should that be their choice. And so I am here for them and for the others in the room, pleading with you to review the Hill study, find a solution before the exodus. When the experience walks out the door, you will not get it back.
Thank you. Now, Amira Nada, Elnora Jones, Celia Mora, and then Katie McConnell.
Yes, my name is Eleanor Jones. I work at Merrickmore Elementary School, and I'm a custodian, and I love my job. And I'm a member of the I'm a DAE member, and I love my job, really do. But I love my money too. So all I want y'all to do is just fix what y'all done messed up. And I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Elnora Jones. Celia Mora. Celia Mora, no. Katie McConnell, you're next, and then followed by Katie Canty, Samira Wellmeyer, and Kristen Southworth. Yes, go ahead.
After last night's revelations, if this board wants my trust as a mother of 2 DPS students, as a resident of Durham, I need the following from you. Page 4 of your report refers to the contracted budget analysis of our CFO. She ran the numbers. Who is she? Where is her contract? And for whom does she work? 2, last week, you demanded answers of the timeline of when we first learned of this issue. This probe must be extended to the administration on the right side of this room. We, your public, deserve to know. Esteemed women of this board, you've been hoodwinked once. If there are still snakes in the grass, I promise they will bite you again. As an employee, thank you for our meet and confer tonight. Thank you. But there are 2 other things I ask of you. 1, you must vote to keep our February checks as promised, and tonight publicly explain what happened to January. That is what we're asking of you tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Katie Canty.
Hello, my name is Katie Canty, and I'm speaking for an anonymous member of your IT department. I am a DAE member, and this person I'm speaking for is also a proud DAE member. How do you justify hiring someone for their skills but refuse to compensate them accordingly? I accepted a position in 2022 to combine work and coaching, leveraging my extensive experience as a track coach with DPS since 2014. My coaching achievements, including mentoring state and national champions, facilitating college scholarships, and earning accolades as an athlete, such as being a 3-time USA champion and a 2-time Olympic finalist and world silver medalist. Despite retiring in 2009, I still hold a world ranking of 20th all time. For all that I have done as a coach and athlete, I was recognized with a dedicated day in Durham, North Carolina, May 8th. My contributions and impacts extend beyond the resume, fostering discipline and academic excellence among students. Despite my many years working in the IT field, it seems insufficient to DPS, taking me from step 21 after being hired, now down to step 1. I
Thank
pose the
you.
question once more. How do you
Thank you.
justify hiring?
Thank you. Next, we have Samira Wellmeyer, Kristen Southworth, and then Luna Gomez.
Mira Wellemeyer, I cede my time to Kristen Southworth.
Good evening. Tonight, as you continue the discussion on resolving the pay issues for our classified staff, I hope you will consider the many consequences that will, sorry, DPS is calling me to cancel school again. Sorry. Consider the many consequences that will come from not being able to honor your commitment that you made last fall to our classified staff. Considering not just the financial cost, but the cost to our schools and students. Last week, I heard you speak about wanting to provide employees with certainty on their future pay. What about the certainty and commitment you have to families and students? Families want to know that there will be a bus driver to take their kids to school, not tomorrow. The kids will be met by a classroom teacher who has experience, that someone will be there to provide individualized instruction for a struggling reader, that a school will have a nurse on site to bandage a scraped knee, that there is an art teacher who provides space where a kid can learn about self-expression, that a school secretary provides a safe space for a kid who just needs a little reset, that there is an instructional assistant to fill in so a teacher can attend an IEP meeting. These are our schools, and our families need them to be there. DPS cannot afford to lose any more staff. This was the retention plan. And even today, there are 60 plus unfilled EC positions that are still posted on the website. The EC budget has been decreased year after year, and now this debacle has taken away financial support for our EC staff, which will only further negatively impact our most vulnerable students.
Thank you. Next, we have Luna Gomez, followed by Nathan Marvell.
My name is Luna Gomez. I'm a DPS student and I go to Hull Elementary School. I'm tired of this nonsense. Where is the money? Teachers need to pay rent, buy food, and purchase clothes. Some teachers also have children who also need food and clothes. I'm tired. We're tired of hearing your lies. When my mom told me the superintendent quit because of the problems there were, I thought it was a cowardly thing to do. I just hope that someone does something about this mess. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Nathan Marvell.
Can't believe I have to follow that. My name is Nathan Marvell. I've been a DPS parent for 9 years. In the last 3 years, I've become a substitute teacher in order to become more involved in my children's elementary school. From my observations, discussions with the staff, they felt utterly betrayed by this board and the administration. I'm grateful to see us moving forward towards finding a responsible way to meet the promise the district made in October, and I applaud the board moving towards partnering with DAE. I'm very concerned that even as you started that partnership, as you put in place better financial controls and personnel, that you can identify, I'm concerned that you're going to be able to identify a realistic and responsible option beyond what the Hill report offered. I think that you need to spend some push forward additional funding for March to buy the district time for effective rebudgeting. And if that has to go through all the way through June to make sure that you are partnering with DAE and your new financial controls to make this right. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment for the evening. And now we move to our first agenda item under Operation Services, the compensation study implementation options. So I will pass it to Dr. Lassane and Ms. Ojijo.
Good evening. Tonight, we share with you a quick review of the compensation study options presented last week, along with a few additional options for your review and consideration. And so I would like to advance to the slide about the fund balance. We shared last week the recent actions of the Board of Education that involve the use of fund balance, and the fact that though the general statutes say that there is no requirement to maintain a minimum fund balance, it is recommended that DPS maintain a fund balance of 12.7 million. So the next slide is just as a recap of what that looks like with the recent decisions of the board. So you can see there that in order to cover the salaries from July 2023 to January 2024, our fund balance was reduced from almost 11 million to $6.4 million. And so with that, we would like to quickly review some of the compensation options based on the budget. Last week, we discussed option 1, which involved the Hill compensation study with the adopted state experience. This is the currently adopted option. Option 2 would eliminate the Hill compensation study and revert to 2022-23 with a 11% increase. Option 3 offers the same with a 15% increase. And option 4 would eliminate the Hill compensation study with a 15% increase and consider an additional month of the initial Hill compensation with legacy years. That should be. Next slide. Option 1, which is implementing the Hill compensation study with the state experience. This monthly compensation is based on the green column for the January letter that employees impacted employee, well, also those that did not have a change received that letter also. This is a minimum 4% increase to classified employees over their 2022-23 compensation. It would maintain any salary grade adjustments, and the funding for this option is available in our current budget at a total cost of $91.2 million. Option 2, as discussed last week, would eliminate the Hill study, maintain one-to-one ratio for experience steps, both public and private. It would implement an 11% salary increase over the 2022-23 classified salary schedules. If you want to think of it this way, the 11% increase would be comprised of 4% from the state on average and 7% locally. This option would eliminate any salary grade changes from the Hill recommendations, and some employees would receive less compensation than what they were quoted in the January letter. Funding for this option is available, and the total cost would be $90.1 million. Tonight, we would like to share option 3, which would also eliminate the Hill compensation study and restore the 2022-23 classified salary schedules with an across-the-board increase of 15%, maintaining verified public and private experience at a ratio of 1:1. This option would eliminate salary grade changes also from the Hill study, and some employees could receive less, but it would be way less than with the 11%. Funding for this option is at a cost of $93.4 million. Option 4, and I think we may need to make a correction to this side. I'm gonna go to our CFO. Would involve 1 additional month at the Hill compensation study recommendation with legacy, public and private years of experience. It would eliminate the Hill compensation study and maintain a ratio of 1:1. It would include the 15% salary increase, along with all the things that we just discussed, all the impact of that, including salary grades. I do not, this would have an impact from our current budget, correct? I think that may have been something that was missed, and it would be at a cost of $94.1 million. Is that? We'll come back to that in just a minute. Other scenarios that were considered as part of this presentation last week, you can see, were the Hill compensation study with 3:1 experience steps, with 2:1 experience steps, and with 1:1 experience steps. As we entertain your questions regarding these, I do want to clarify what would be within the existing budget, options 3 and 4 in relation to our existing budget.
What we presented were within the budget. Those were options all that were within our feasible budget. The 15% one I think you were referring to of the $3.4 million it's $2.1 million over the current Hill longevity. However, it is less expensive than the 2:1 and more evenly distributed amongst employees.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And board members, questions, comments?
Thank you. What is the need for option 2? You just said option 3. What was the need for option 2? Option 4. It was two.
Option 4 would,
million.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The distinction for option 4 would provide an additional month of salary, and that's about $700,000 for each month.
So 2.8. Thank you.
So I don't think I have the slides as revised, and I wondered if we could get those in our packet.
Okay. So we were asked for a revision at what time did you receive that request? And so we are glad to provide those, but we have added those slides based on a late afternoon request.
Yes, thank y'all for working up to the minute on this, because we have been playing out different scenarios and calling and asking and saying, what about this? What about this? What about this? So I know I called you late this evening to make that request. If we can get that shared with our board assistant so we can go ahead and upload that to the website. I want to apologize to folks, but we really have just been up into the minute thinking about the different scenarios of how to work this out. So thank you all.
Was there an option with a 12% raise that had been modeled that was?
There is an option for 12% raise. It is $90.1 million, which is $334,000 less than our current situation. So for every percentage point that we move, $1 million is the round figure in between. So moving from 10 to 11, 11 to 12, if you think $1 million between each, that's a safe gauge in comparison.
I thank you for all your work on this. I hear the pain from our employees. I think we're talking, in my mind, about a solution for February. And I think, to me, it's important that we maintain October rates for February. And then I'd like to hear a discussion from the board on how we move forward and what others' thoughts are. I think it's significant to acknowledge that and Ms. Ojijo, please correct me if I'm wrong ever on any of these numbers. That the payment if we continue that on an annual basis, 99 million, is that the correct amount? 99. Okay. And so folks that read the report saw the gap and the significance of the gap in funding that we are wrestling with as we make these choices. I think it's helpful to hear different scenarios and why it's challenging to maintain that through this year and also challenging for future years. And these are all things that I think all of us are struggling with as we lead forward with our values centered on what originated this work, which was lifting employees. Is there a reason that people are reporting that they would lose money or not actually get an 11% raise in that scenario? Can you help me understand what folks are experiencing because I've been assuming that we would hold them at whatever pay they were at in the prior year, flat 11%. Teachers got 4%-ish, right? I mean, so can you help talk through that a little bit?
At 11%, we calculated 1,165 employees will either receive more or no change, and only 710 would be less. But out of those that received less, it's a smaller impact of $113 a month rather than the larger sums that we're seeing that hit in some of the other plans.
And is that in
From the
comparison
October,
to the?
that's in comparison to the October pay. Can you repeat that whole thing one more time,
Yes.
Sarah? Thank you. In comparison to the October pay that we are not able to maintain, we have 1,165 employees that will be getting more and 710 that will be less. But in looking at that 710 that are getting less, we're seeing that the impact is not as severe as it is when we were comparing, say, the 2-to-1.
So one of the things that concerned us about how the Hill study actually was implemented across all of our classified staff was that we saw some folks receive raises that were in the 4% range and some of them received 45. That on its face did not seem fair by any modeling that we could wrestle with and did not seem to meet the intent of the study. So that's part of what I'm wrestling with as we study these scenarios is how we can maximize lifting everyone up in a way that brings that equity forward. Thank you.
Ms. Ojijo, can you repeat which option that was that had the numbers that you just gave
That
us?
was the 11% option.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, but Chair Umstead.
I would like to put a motion on the floor to keep
February's pay the same rate as before. We heard that from our educators. We know that as we continue to wrestle with this decision, we're getting closer to payday and want to make sure that folks have a sense of what they'll be getting for February. So I just want to move that we keep February pay the same from October
Second.
through now
And-
February.
We'll
Through
second
now
it.
February.
The motion has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any other discussion about this item? All right, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Use the same sign. It passes unanimously. And I would ask Ms. Ojijo, would you share with us how we will pay for that February?
We have a few options that we're evaluating. We have a little bit of grant funding that's unrestricted that we're evaluating its use. There is always fund balance again, and we are also looking through our budget to find efficiencies and make some reallocations to see if we can recoup it that way.
Thank you. Yep, okay. Ms. Lewis?
Yes, thank you for that. I think that,
We'd like
what I've heard
everyone's
is
respect here.
super important to honor years of experience. So I appreciate the additional options that you brought for us and the clarity about that. With the, getting us back to the years of experience, the base where we've been, that is closest to the 2-to-1. We have to just find the money. And what you're saying right now to find the money is looking at some of the funds that we have. Would we look at expiring positions and vacancies to find money?
We will rely heavily on expiring positions, and the staff overages that we have related to our ADM declines will have to be used in order to cover some of these shortages.
And with the Mackenzie Scott, ESSER, and fund balance, are those options as well?
They are options, but I think there's a little bit more thought process that goes into them to see what the opportunity cost is for utilizing those options.
And then with the Mackenzie Scott, has it been, so we just approved that, the different line items for Mackenzie Scott in February 2023. Are we on timeline for those expenditures?
I can't speak directly to that. We could get back to you from some of the program people to let you know. I know Dr. Pittman's great. I don't know if she's ready for me to volley the question to her, but she's much more knowledgeable about the team, the academics team, and some of the headway they're making and the progress they're making.
So one of the line items I saw was for summer programming, and I'm wondering if that's last summer has passed, if there was any additional expenditures from that line item in particular that we can look into first and prioritizing what was allocated already and what was not spent. And then my other question, when you're sharing the numbers for the 11% that's impacted, for the 15%, how many will experience an increase at 15%?
1,308.
And the decrease from the previous, before the Hill implementation? How many will be a decrease? I'll just make sure the comparison was the same.
From the October, November, December months.
Yes,
567.
567. So it'll be more than where we are at the 710 for that decrease. And we've just passed it to keep the February payments the same. Option number 4 keeps the February payments the same plus the 15% increase. Is that accurate? Is that option 4?
Can we
That
get
is option 4.
Can we get the slides back up,
Yeah.
please? Thank you.
I'd like to move that we accept option 4 to help us move forward and knowing what we're to expect and honoring people's years of service.
If we could go back one slide. Right, thank you.
May I clarify something? Ms. Ojijo, in an email message earlier this week, we were trying to understand the total cost of a plan that would include the 15% salary increase and how much that would cost over time. And you had indicated if the 4 million from fiscal year 24 county appropriation is recurring, then this option would require additional 6.5 million to cover the increased cost of salaries over the prior year. Can you help us understand that a little bit better so we can think?
For that one, I believe you are referring to the 11%, correct?
That was in response to questions about the 15% that had been
About the
proposed
15.
by Dr. Mubenga.
Gotcha. So we were comparing to where we are now, and it is $2.1 million. However, 4 million of that was already baked in. So we have to make sure that that 4 million is recurring, and then we need an additional 2 million of recurring to equal the $6 million that plan is over the prior year. So when we're looking at that plan over prior year, it's $6 million over the prior year.
Okay, thank you.
There's been a motion. I just want to see if there's, before we get to more discussion, if there's a second.
So I move that we adopt option 4 that gets us back to our 4 years of service. It's 2.8 that we can find. Well, that wasn't part of the motion. I was explaining why I made the motion. The motion is to adopt option number 4 at the honoring the February payments and giving a 15% from where we were starting in March. Yes. Yes. For over 2022, 2023. March and forward.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any other discussion? Ms. Rogers?
I just want to be clear that I was sitting in this meeting as a single parent and got the phone call from DPS about school being canceled tomorrow. And I got no warning. And as much as I wanted to hear the public speakers tonight, I couldn't hear because the line of communication didn't feel right for that call to go out in this moment. I came in here prepared to vote one way, and now I would like administration to bring us a recommendation of where we can find the money to keep the pay through the end of the year.
Okay. Other comments? There has been a motion, so we are going to vote on the motion.
Sorry, I had some other comments, sorry.
Ms. Byer?
I love this community and I love advocating with you. I want to read to you some of the concerns that we have. And I alluded to some of them last week. We have a comptroller that has just joined to help us really understand the physical and financial health of this district. So one of the things that Ms. Ojijo shared this morning was that we have 113 employees that are currently funded by ESRA funds, federal funds, that are expiring this year. We have significant reductions that we need to make because of enrollment that has changed and hold harmlesses that have stopped after the pandemic. Ms. Ojijo wrote this week, as it currently stands, there is an alarming amount of uncertainty when we look at long-term sustainability. I am concerned that whatever we do is rushed. Okay, we've already voted on February pay, okay? We've already voted, and yet school is canceled, okay? We Thank you.
We do
Thank
need
you.
to have, order and
Thank
respect
you.
the speakers, please.
I don't know that any of us have all the information that we need to make a decision beyond February in this moment. I think we are grasping at solutions that don't satisfy everyone. I am concerned about the employees that are affected, that got high raises that are looking to be reduced, and I understand the concern. And I am also very concerned about those that received very modest increases. And I know that is a shared Durham value that we have. And so I'm struggling with us making a decision beyond February until we get further information on our physical health so that we can truly evaluate how to maximize what we can do both through the end of this year and not have to make major changes next year as well. Some of the things that are on our agenda that we started talking about for our budget next year include restoring master's pay for teachers, including raising teacher supplements to be the highest in the state, including taking care of our classified staff. And we need to have these conversations together. Some of the asks that have already been in the DAE wish list would probably cost $60 to $70 million when we were blessed for our commissioners to give us 10 last year. We need to be clear about the physical reality, and the state is not coming to help us. So we will do the most that we can for the DPS family as we plan and budget forward. But I have unreadiness about making a decision beyond February tonight.
Chair Umstead.
I do just want to make a comment about school closures. We know many of you received that notification this afternoon. While we were in this meeting today, it will be a teacher workday. That decision was made
We're gonna respect the speakers up here.
So that decision was made because we were told that majority of our transportation support staff would not be here. And so without having transportation for our students, we know by law, many of our students require that transportation, and we know many of our families rely on that transportation. We know that buses have to be inspected by those support personnel every day before they're allowed to drive. And so we felt like it was the right decision to close schools to ensure that we could have students safe tomorrow. So I just want to make sure I make that announcement. That was talked about with our senior leadership team today and also communicated with us as well.
Okay, Ms. Lewis.
I've done a lot of research and studying over these past few weeks. and even more after the last presentation that we had and more conversations, listening to all the public comments from last week to this week. Thank you for being here. Thank you for fighting for what's right and understanding we need to make a decision. Someone said earlier, this is anxiety provoking. This is not good for my mental health. It's not good for mine either. To be in limbo and not have a decision of where we're going is anxiety provoking. And I said, as I'm listening to the different options and what does it cost to keep whole, okay, let me finish. To keep whole through February allows people to know what to expect. To have changed it to 15% still allows people to know. The problem with both solutions for February, we're in February, and it shouldn't be a blanket answer because different situations are in the numbers. If we look across the scale for keeping things whole, we knew that some had 40, 50% increases, some had barely the 4. So to have a blanket, and that's what's been asked for, but we know 700,000, this is where it will come from. There are answers there. This gives relief, is a Band-Aid. I've worked and read my emails and had questions answered. And look, how do we make this whole? That everyone gets an increase from where they were and honor their years of experience. We don't want to have to keep coming in month after month after month, looking at charts and numbers. I mean, we have someone coming and saying, knows a whole budget and what it would look like if we did this, this, or that. 7 million for a scale that we know was not implemented the way we had been told it would be. 15% is 2 million. What I see in a fund balance is 1 to 2 million that gets added from unused funds from the previous year. That's simply put, from the last 4 years, you see 1 to 2 million. If this reoccurring expense is 2 million, we can cover what we need for this year, and we can make a request and be creative. We can't commit the commissioners to fund any part of it, but if there's conversation and dialogue and collaboration, we can come up with a plan to say, well, if you do this portion over a 2-year span, then we can do this next portion. So it doesn't behoove us or lose anything. We know what our fund balance is. We know we have McKinsey Scott funding. We know we're going to get another solution to graduate entries of getting to the money market value that we need. I've read a lot this week. I think I might have earned another degree, what I've learned in payroll and HR. But I feel confident that the money is there. We can find the money, and everyone will get an increase over where they were in 22, 23. This is the option that gets people closer to where they were. It's not perfect, but we have to make a decision and move forward.
All right. I'm also going to share some thoughts before we vote on the motion. My desire would be to wait and to see what our finances look like. We do need to know where our money is going to come from before we spend it. That is fiscal responsibility. We've asked Ms. Ojijo to offer some proposals for what it might look like if we were to try and maintain the salaries for the rest of the year. And I don't know what that will surface, that will look like. We need to get information from our comptroller, and we expect to get information from him next week after he has had time to do an assessment. And we need that information, I believe, to move forward. I maintain that I am concerned about the implications of changing salaries that were already told to our employees, but particularly for our employees who are on the lower end, for whom finances may be more tight, and a change, a sudden change, or even a 30-day change makes a difference. But we do need to figure out responsibly what we're going to do. We can't spend money that we don't have or that is not allowable for that kind of expense. So my desire would be to wait. I'm glad that we passed the February pay because I think that is fair. But we will have more information soon. And I also want to just mention that we voted on this last week, but we set up a meeting with DAE to discuss and meet and confer policy. That is just the beginning of a conversation, and that will be next Thursday, February 15th, I believe at 5:30 p.m. I want to mention that because these conversations are ongoing with members of our community, organizations in our community. Everybody up here is in touch with people constantly, parents, employees, and some students who have thoughts and experiences that are relevant to this conversation. But I would like us to get a little bit more input before we make a decision for the rest of the academic year. We also need to be very thoughtful about next year. And as Ms. Beyer mentioned, we do have ESSER funds that are going to expire soon. I think Chair Umstead brings this up every time we have a presentation on ESSER funds. What happens next? And so I want us to keep saying that because I want the community to hear that. We do have positions that are supported by ESSER funds, and we need to think creatively about what we will do going forward. But we need to get our ducks in a row, and I'd like to see us do that. Okay, Ms. Carter-Otten.
I'm on the same page as Board Member Chavez, and here's why. I do feel strongly, as we'd already voted for, that we need to maintain the elevated, discussed in October salaries. My concerns are that we still don't have a good understanding, and we are working in the next, hopefully, couple of weeks on having a clearer picture of not only our financial health, but what we like and don't like about Hill. Currently, just over 2/3, so the majority of classified employees are getting less than a 15% raise, with many of them just getting 4%, requiring a hold harmless. So that's the majority of classified employees under the October letters, while the remaining third received raises, as we've discussed many times, that may top 40% or as high as a $30,000 a year annual increase. That may be justified. We just need to look at it more closely before we make a final decision, because whatever we decide now, we've got to deal with come the next fiscal year. And we don't want to decrease anybody's salary in July. That would be a nightmare. I think we can all agree, right? So I want you to know, again, as my colleagues have said tonight, we are knee deep in these spreadsheets right now, and I know, as we should be. We're spending a lot of time thinking about this and trying to honor these shared values of honoring and respecting and giving you credit and compensation for your years of experience. We're looking at what all of the surrounding counties are doing, all the surrounding school districts, to see how they're doing this and how they're being creative about it. How we can restore steps and maintain steps for y'all. Making sure you get, when possible, annual salary increases, provide differential for ECIAs. Ideally, I'd love to be able to provide differential for our Spanish-speaking employees. You're doing an extra job with an extra skill. So you should be getting paid for that. I want transparency with our salary information clearly outlined, publicly available on the website for each position. This exists. This exists in other school districts. There's no reason that it can't exist here in DPS. And ideally, in addition to having clearly outlined procedures for classified salaries, we have a policy in place. I know people have been talking about policy a lot and how we've changed policy. There's actually not currently a policy in place about this. And so that's something that we could look at doing as we move forward so that there aren't shifts that are unexpected, that it takes a board vote to be able to change what's going on. So all that said, I say we stick with what you all are expecting or hoping for, as we've already voted. We spend the next couple of weeks really working hard with the comptroller to better understand the Hill study and what needs to be modified from that, and what our financial health looks like, and we make the best decision possible for the rest of the fiscal year while also preparing our budget ask to the county for the next year.
There's already a motion. Would you like to say anything?
Just adding to what my colleague Jessica just said. Right now, I'm in contact with people that are all weighing in. There's a lot of folks weighing in right now, and I just want to be attentive to what's coming through. Questions that just came through, because we understand we don't do this work alone. I know that this humbling situation just showed we don't do this alone. We cannot do this alone, and we don't want to. One of the questions coming in to me, and I'm going to read it, is no one going to ask administration to walk us through what these options look like for workers? How does this change things versus the October letter? So somebody's asking for examples to visualize this, and this is more work, but this is what is needed to be able to conceptualize the best option. And so I listened to that, and I just wanted to offer and put this out, that we cannot do this alone, in the sense that we make the decision on behalf of all the employees that are affected. And if you can't see what we're trying to do, we're probably going to continue to face this tension that is affecting a lot of families, that is affecting a lot of you. It's like hurt people. This is happening right now. A lot of hurt people, unintentionally, whether intentionally or unintentionally. I don't think anybody has intentions to hurt anybody, but I'm letting you know there is hurt. And if you want examples and you want numbers and you want people's faces, they will tell you their stories. Some of them are paying Uber. Some of them are having, children that are not progressing as intended, because their teachers are working hard to lift up a lot of kids. And so families who have been concerned. And at this point, I second what Jessica said in terms of being able to get this data. And I think we have this month that we're going to keep at the same level. And this question about walking us through, what does it look like? An example. We have actually received a lot of emails with examples of folks who have told us what has happened. And so being able to walk through those options. And then the other thing that came in is when it comes to the ESSER funds and losing some of those positions, we want you to know that everything has a consequence. Everything we do, even if we're trying to listen to the request today, it has an impact downstream. And I'm not saying downstream as in leveling like this. I'm talking about sequentially, for the next year. And so there are ESSER funds that we will not have anymore. That means positions that are going away. And that is also a consideration. Do we win in the long term if we spend a lot of money right now, and then when those funds that were temporary because of COVID, because of hurt that was happening through the COVID pandemic, and a recognition that a lot of people were affected by COVID. We got those funds, but they're going away. They're temporary. And that forecasting of what that's going to look like, how many positions we will lose, I think is important in this conversation as well. So we can all be on the same page and have the information. On another note, I understand that many folks have wanted to see what consequences look like, and this has not been an easy week. It has not been, and neither have all these weeks in terms of consequences and impacts. And being that a lot of people are suffering right now, I do want to say this. We as a district decided years ago, and some of my colleagues who have been on the board for longer can tell you when this was talked about. What does it mean to have access to unrestricted funds that can provide a lifeline to people who are experiencing hurt right now? What does it look like to look out for community and to be able to provide for whatever is happening or could happen when the shift is made, when whatever decision is made and people need some kind of support? That is what a foundation is for. And DPS Foundation does have a community crisis fund. They have a fund. DPS Foundation has a unique ability to fundraise on behalf of Durham Public Schools. DPS Foundation this week, I don't know if somebody can tell me what they decided to make a statement binding themselves to this situation, acknowledging that they are in the situation and they are with you, which means DPS Foundation has access to fundraising capabilities. They hired a previous board member from this board who now works for DPS Foundation in partnerships, and they have more staff than many foundations across the United States. I mean, for that size, for the kind of thing that they do. So for the money that they have staff that can help fundraise. I say if you have a dire need, there is a crisis fund. It's called a community, and I can tell you because I translated this for DPS Foundation when they were doing the website, and I actually translated it and sent it. And I will tell you what this fund does. This fund and the way it was written, it says that families can get $2,500 sometimes, and these funds are emergency funds. It also says, let me just look through my phone, that this is for DPS staff, DPS families. So it is the DPS community that can access these crisis funds. I don't want anybody to be hurting in ways that some of you have shared some of the situations you're going through. And so we need to build our capabilities with our foundation to fundraise on behalf of things that DPS needs. And it's wonderful that they take initiative and they fund their own projects and initiatives and they kind of generate their own things. But right now we need our foundation to help us out, fundraise on behalf of our staff that is hurting and our children that are hurting, moms who have had to pay Uber rides and they don't have money to cover those Uber rides, families that have hurt so bad. And so our foundation can help us with that fund. And I'd like to add that as something to the package. It needs to be a full package. But February stays the same. And we are working towards giving scenarios and examples of what this looks like with real, like examples of wages, like how does a wage change? We want to be able to help you visualize that. You can see it, we can see it. We can all be on the same page when we vote. The other thing is that along with that salary option that we choose, DPS Foundation, we are binding you to this. You made a statement and you said you care about this and you stand with classified staff. So DPS Foundation, you're on the table now too. And what we want is that community crisis fund that you created for crises, like the one that we're experiencing today, continues to serve our families in whatever ways. If there is a dire situation, we want to be able to have our DPS family access that fund and fundraise for more funds. And we can all help fundraise because I know you get the flyers that say, you know, please donate to DPS Foundation. They are a foundation that works to support Durham Public Schools, and this is a very opportune time to have their support. Thank you.
All right, before we vote, is there on the motion on the floor, is there any other discussion, Ms. Lewis? Or whoever wants to go
Yeah,
first.
just again, from hearing my colleagues and having done this research, I jumped into the conversation as though you had been with me the whole time and moving, because motions were moving fast up here. You know, so I hear the concerns and the needs, and I just want to back up for a second. Where we are. This is my last plea and appeal to this board for this motion that's on the floor. The board receives reports, presentations, and as you saw today, the staff was working on a presentation 4:30, making changes for a 5 o'clock meeting. I am an empath and I feel energy, and I know the heaviness that this community has been carrying and the heaviness of this administration and this board. We ask questions when we get these reports. We ask the staff for places of clarity. We watch the presentation. We also ask for questions for the good of the public. Questions we may have already asked during the week, but to slow down and make sure we're bringing the public with us. We all have different expertise and special interests on this board, different specialties, which is why it's important to have a diverse board with experience in the education system with these different departments to bring a balance. With this board that was elected and one appointed, we trusted the administration to give us clear language, honest and accurate analysis of the Hill study. That didn't happen. There could be no conversation that the board did not ask enough questions. We could have asked more questions. And then it was said, these are recommendations, and we needed to adopt a policy. It needed to get back on the agenda in April, and it didn't. Everyone was assured by finance, who does calculations and outsourcing of calculations, as you've learned, that we would have longevity and years of experience based on the numbers that was submitted, when in reality, those numbers could not support or could only support longevity, which is what we approved. And we have to take responsibility for that. We have to fix what's been given to us. So when I was making decisions last week with the information shared, option 1, option 2, what was the best thing? I really had to reflect and say, let's go deeper. Why did you run for school board? What is it about being in a place to have public will to move for the working class? My beginnings, where I come from, sharing power and hearing from those voices. You need leadership in this district that gives you stability and moves us forward. A 15% increase gives everybody an increase beyond where they were before the Hill study. It gives back the years of experience while we take time to see how do we really make people whole and get to the market value that's needed. We've asked for the numbers, $2 million. You know we have it. You see it in the fund balance. If we didn't have to be creative in any other way, that's there. And we'll work to get it to be reoccurring. There are places where it can happen. So when I'm appealing to this board to say, yes, we're going to have a comptroller. Yes, we're going to have a budget request for next year. Yes, we're going to have a board-approved salary study and asking more questions. And we'll roll out the plan as it should have been done in stages and not all at once. But in this moment, moving beyond the demands that have been given to us, we need to make a decision. Is why I stand on this 15% with making February whole with that option. You can vote it up or down. We've done the work. $2 million is what's being asked to be found, and we already see where it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Umstead.
Yeah, I just have a question for you, Sierra. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. We had a couple of requests. We've heard from some educators around January checks. Around that second paycheck didn't look exactly what they would like. And I would love if you could just highlight a little bit from conversations we had earlier. It doesn't seem as if there's an error on payroll side, but because there's so many folks with so many different tax brackets and all kinds of different things, that might be where that is. But let you, can you highlight, Ms. Ojijo, a little bit more about that January check?
For the January paychecks, it's important for employees to look at their gross pay. We made sure that they were paid at the same rate as they were in October, November, and December. However, because of the holidays, many took 07 days or days without pay, or their deductions may have changed. But we have fielded a lot of questions and we've done a lot of in-depth analysis, and we often find that the employee has either had a days without pay, they have missed the hold harmless line and not added it in, or they just had a different expectation for taxation or a deduction. But it's about looking at your gross pay and making sure that your gross pay, which may be a single number and it may be what you see on the Hill scale plus a whole harmless, but that is the exact same rate as it was the prior months.
Could you clarify roughly how many, we have been talking about this a lot, roughly how many are legitimate, this was an error, payroll needs to fix this, that you've seen so far, recognizing there might be more?
I have not seen some thus far. The ones that I have seen have all been misreading or not reading the pay stub. And I get the same report from the techs and Vicky Goff as well.
So, Ms. Ojijo, if people still have concerns, who should they reach out to sit down with and look at their pay stub?
I think there's a district payroll email address. It's dist.payroll that they can always email. They can always reach out directly to Vicky Goff, their payroll tech, or myself if they need additional assistance also.
Thank you, Ms. Ojijo. We do have a motion on the floor for option 4. And I do think it's important that we make a decision so that our district can figure out path forward. We've done different steps to get there, and making a decision around pay feels like another step that's vital and important for us to make. What I can commit to is we know that we have, like Ms. Carter often said, a budget ask coming up as we develop our budget to present to our county commissioners. And spending the time to look back at those salary schedules, make sure they are what we believe we can sustain financially, that we believe is the work we wanted to do to help bring folks up to market rate. Putting that in a budget ask is a way forward so that we can advocate for our staff to ensure that they have the salaries that we want to see. We know that the Hill study has some more questions for us. I think we mentioned in the last meeting, more questions and things that need to be studied. And so if we make a decision about pay today, it also gives us time to do that study, do the work, put it in our budget request, and have that conversation with our funding partners. Like, that's our work, right? That's our work as a school board in the district. And I think it's important for us to make a step. We know we have more questions, and we will continue to do more study. It's not if or, it's both and. We'll continue to do the study, continue to look at our budget, continue to understand ESSER funding and where that's going to go in the next couple of years. We know we have to do that work. And I also think it's vital that we make a step forward today.
All right. If there is no more discussion, then we will vote. And I think it might make sense to do a roll call vote. So I'm going to start with Ms. Rogers.
No.
Ms. Valladares.
No.
Ms. Byer. Aye. And let me start that. Ms. Cardon.
No.
Ms. Lewis.
Aye.
Chair Umstead.
Aye.
And I vote no. The motion does not pass.
Or do we need to table?
Madam Chair, could we table this conversation until our March work session?
We need to do that in
February, sorry, don't even.
Our February board meeting.
February board.
February 22nd is, yeah.
Okay, I would make that motion, which was to.
Table, the
Tape,
postpone?
no, she said something different.
Postpone.
Can you all state it? So, or Miss, can you use the microphone? There you go.
A motion to postpone consideration of the next step until February 22nd.
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any other discussion? Ms. Rogers?
Can I ask that we get clear understanding and clear presentation of the numbers and the impact that each option will have on the 2,200 students, I'm sorry, educators in the, that are being impacted by this change?
Yes. Ms. Cardon?
To add to that, like, one thing that has been of interest is specifically how different groups of employees and different salary ranges will be impacted. So I think it's a value of mine, at least to lift up our employees that are getting paid the lowest. We don't want we want everybody to be paid well, but we don't want anybody to not be able to afford their rent or food or clothes for their children. So I want to see in that outline, and again, clearly so that we can understand it easily, who's being most impacted by each of these different choices.
Chair Umstead? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. That was a question.
I was just curious if the comptroller would be able to weigh in on those analyses.
That would be great.
That would only be fair.
Yes. Did you have? Ms. Lewis? Okay. Ms. Valladares?
Yes, Sierra, you've sent emails to us at 11 o'clock at night or close to 11 o'clock. And I know Vicky Goff is also, engaged us. Thank you for letting us kind of see some of these things. The way that we see it, like sometimes it's helped me to understand what are some of the tax considerations or some of the things, especially with January paychecks. So I think when it comes to examples that we can add to the presentation, that would be just, that really helped me to kind of see some of the situations. The other thing is, sorry, there was a question about how exactly and where are we paying this money from? So, if we're going to use our fund balance for it to say, and I know that you included, the amounts that the option would require, but for us to even put in, if we intend to engage the county in any way, and I know we have an upcoming county meeting and folks have asked that we move that meeting up closer, and I know that that's logistically something we'll have to figure out, but I guess the question is, what are our options for funding? Where would we get this funding from? And especially with ESSER funds going away and positions being cut, even if there's just something about that folks can access, because not everybody's going to track the entire meeting that we have, but if they can have at least that slide to keep that in mind, that we will be cutting positions, not because we want to, but because our funds are running low in that way. So that's also a consideration. I think that would help us give time to the community to engage us more. We're accessible for meetings early in the morning, late at night, just let us know. We've met with DAE a couple of times. We have meet and confer coming up with DAE. I also know that there's so many other folks who want to continue to think about these options and get some clarity on what it is. And, even if I've engaged some folks, sometimes I have to go a second time and a third time, and that's the nature of what we have to do. So engage us as much as you need and want, and that we can actually try to become available for. Yeah, so just the funds, where they're coming from.
Okay. You would like to go first?
Yeah, I just also want to make a comment, Ms. Valladares. You talked about the foundation a little bit earlier, and I just want to clarify for everyone, the foundation is a separate entity, right? They have their own board, they have their own ED, and so we can't dictate what their funds do. Just want to make sure we make that really clear. The DPS Foundation has their own structure and how they spend their funds.
I just have a follow-up. Do you know who started the DPS Foundation? It was actually Superintendent Mubenga, who resigned yesterday in conversations with many of the folks who started, and Megan Gonzalez-Smith was chosen as the first director, and there was a whole lot in terms of DPS investing in the foundation. Foundations help whatever institution, they have our name, DPS, and they have to be our partner in as many ways. So I do compel a foundation that was started by a superintendent who resigned yesterday to really, use those funds to help our DPS staff. That fund already exists. I remember when it was created, and that is a fund to help so that if you've been telling me, many folks have been telling me, what about these people who are experiencing hardship? That fund is there, and money from DPS has gone there for that reason, and money from many constituents across Durham go there for that reason. And I understand they have their own board and their own programming, but there's a moment of crisis right now when we need our foundation on our side to actually pitch in as much as possible with this. Thank you.
Ms. Lewis.
So just appealing to our board, if we are postponing this again, let's get our research in early. These requests that are being made for graphs to be shown. When I'm looking at the salary analysis, I knew at 11% increase, it'll be 1,165 increase and 710 decrease. And I said, well, what would it be at 15%? That's 547 decrease. Of that 547 that's decreased, how many is it, the lowest wages is 300. Well, why is that? Well, IAs are across the different salaries. What are some options for that? Well, we could move up 2 steps. We could think about doing a stipend. When I said we're doing a blanket, it's because it's not a blanket solutions for this when we're looking for equity, but that's the research. That's the work being done beforehand. And I jump into the conversation because I want us to get and move somewhere, right? I said all those numbers because I remember them. I know them. Some people need to see them, but I just ask that we make sure that what we're trying to see, we're giving them plenty of time and not an hour before the meeting. We got 2 weeks so that the presentation can be visually seen, which is increasing transparency as well, but just give them time, please.
Thank you. Ms. Byer, and then we'll probably start to wrap it up.
So I just wanted to thank Ms. Ojijo for all the work and all the ways that you have stepped up and led, and our questions and putting this decision off, I know only make more work for you. I appreciate just everything that you're doing to kind of accommodate where we find ourselves with trying to maximize what we can do for our current employees, trying to de-escalate where emotions are justifiably high. And I think we've heard loud and clear that steps matter in Durham. And so I hope that future scenarios will continue just to bring ones that respect that value in this community. And I don't think there's a reason to bring ones that have us doing away with steps. I think what I struggle with is, are there parts of the Hill study that are useful? Are there parts that are not? Are there parts of the 2019 comp study, classified study that we did that are actually better if we give everybody significant raises? So that, if there's pieces and parts of both that we can meld together or things that we can use. I know that our comptroller indicated previous experience with doing some of this work. And so I look forward to just ways that we can do what is best for the majority of our staff and is sustainable going forward. Because we will go across and advocate. We just need to know what we have first and plan accordingly. But thank you.
Board members, if I might, at risk of overstepping, let me state that it is February 8th, one of the things that's been particularly challenged for us in the administration has been having an appropriate amount of time to develop and consider and then backfill proposals with the appropriate amount of information. I would like to ask board members if you have ideas about how we might structure a response, if we can get those ideas from you by perhaps Tuesday, February 13th, that would give us more time in the administration to do a number of things. Number one, all of the things that you've asked us to do tonight. Identify the source for those funds, develop a robust set of slides, perhaps even some sample salary solutions for individuals, but also it would provide us with some opportunities to share some of these ideas with staff members so that we can begin to try to build some consensus around what the community of workers in our community would be willing, where there are opportunities to compromise. We certainly want to be able to bring you a robust set of options, but we do need time to do that. So if I can ask, if I can ask on behalf of the administration for your proposals by February 13th, and I do want to suggest that doesn't mean that we won't continue to develop proposals as well. But if we could ask that, that would give us a good amount of time to put together a robust presentation for you, so that hopefully we'll be able to preempt some of the questions that I know the community has about some of these proposals, and have all the information in front of you for your consideration when we take this issue up again on the 22nd.
Thank you, Dr. King.
That's awesome.
Deadlines are good for all of us sometimes, and in this case, certainly. So we appreciate that. We will send our questions and our proposals and ask questions about proposals by Tuesday.
I
Thank you for your leadership.
Do we need a motion?
I
The-
believe
the
sure has,
motion was
okay.
To
And-
postpone action until
Yes.
February 22nd.
I got distracted. Okay. I just want to say one last thing myself, which is I also want to say thank you so much, Ms. Ojijo. You have taken on this challenge and we thank you for it. It's not easy to come, into this role at this time when we're now going very deep ourselves into the numbers. I also want to mention one thing, which is that I have to think about the larger context here. We're in a post-pandemic moment, and during the pandemic, wages, income, net worth, the gap widened considerably. Housing prices in Durham doubled or more. That's what we're sitting in. And so I think I'm just aware of that as we make our decisions, that things do not affect us all equally. And so we have to be attentive to access to resources. And even if we cannot meet pay everyone what they were told they would receive, we need to think about ways that we can make our scale more equitable, and consider how we can support the needs of our community in a fair way that's attentive to the larger context. So I just wanted to offer that.
Ms.
All right.
Chavez, Dr. King asked for a friendly amendment, and I think I made the motion, and I welcome it, just that we go ahead and hold ourselves to submitting things by February 13th.
You need a second?
It's a friendly amendment. Whoever seconded before, if you'll accept the friendly amendment, Dr. King would be so appreciative.
I believe that was Ms. Rod.
I'll second it.
Great.
because- Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded. I think we've covered the discussion part. So we will go ahead and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
And the motion carries 5-2. All right, we are going to move on to our next topic, which is our consent items. We have 4 consent items, which the board has had a chance to review. Happy to receive a motion.
Move approval of the consent items.
Second.
This has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, use the same sign. And it passes unanimously. Now we move on to academic services, and there is one item here, the 2024 CTE month proclamation. And I pass it here to Dr. Pack and Dr. Pittman.
There we go. Good evening, board members. We are pleased to bring before you tonight the CTE Month Proclamation for the year 2024. Dr. Julie Pack is here with us this evening, our Senior Executive Director of Career and Technical Education and Magnet Programs, to present the request of the board around the proclamation, and we certainly have always appreciated your support of this work. Dr. Pack?
Thank you, Dr. Pittman. Good evening, board members. Today's cutting-edge, rigorous, and relevant career and technical education programs prepare our youth for jobs in high-wage, high-skill, and high-demand industries. Career and Technical Education Month is a public awareness campaign sponsored by the Association of Career and Technical Education, or ACTE, that takes place each February to celebrate the value of CTE and the achievements and accomplishments of CTE programs across the country. Throughout the month of February, our CTE program will be celebrating and promoting CTE programs in our schools, as well as the potential careers that are right here in Durham County and across North Carolina. We have done some exciting work this year in CTE. We welcome
Dr. Pack, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to say we'd like to just respect our speaker. And so if you do want to have conversation, if you would just step outside. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Thank you. We have done some exciting work this year in CTE. We welcomed all of our 8th grade students, over 1,000 8th graders, to our inaugural Accelerate event, where middle school students engaged with employers to see what career options are available here in Durham County. We increased the number of students participating in work-based learning opportunities throughout our different programs, and we've increased the number of students walking out of Durham Public Schools with industry approved credentials in their toolbox. Finally, we partnered with the Bloomberg Philanthropies, Duke Health, and Durham Tech to plan a health science focused high school to help build the talent pipeline for health science jobs. We are very excited about all the things we've done. Each year, internally, we select a theme for the CTE program. And this year's theme is CTE Rocks. So I'd like to take a moment, give a shout out to our CTE educators, our support staff, and our employers for the tremendous work they're doing to provide career opportunities to the students of Durham Public Schools and let them know that they rock. Tonight, the CTE department is excited to put before you a proclamation declaring February 1st through the 29th, 2024, CTE Month in Durham Public Schools. I want to personally thank each of you on behalf of our CTE teachers and students and staff for your continued support of career and technical education in our schools. You rock. At this time, I invite you to read the proclamation aloud.
Thank you, Dr. Pack. We just celebrate all of those awesome wins for this year and Thank you for all the work that you do for our CTE students and expanding opportunities for our students to participate in CTE. So we will read the proclamation and start with Ms. Rogers.
Proclamation, Career and Technical Education Month. Whereas February 1st through 29th, 2024 has been designated Career and Technical Education Month by the Association for Career and Technical Education. And
whereas career and technical education offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness. And
whereas students in career and technical education programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase their engagement and achievement.
And whereas career and technical education provides students with career exploration opportunities earlier in their educational experience, which enables them to make informed and beneficial decisions about their academic coursework and pursue established programs of study and career pathways. And
whereas leaders from business and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to addressing the skills gap and connecting qualified professionals with available careers in critical and growing CTE fields, including healthcare, energy, skilled trades, advanced manufacturing, cybersecurity, and information technology. And
whereas career and technical education prepares students for these and other fulfilling careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education and lead to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials. And
whereas career and technical education programs ensure that employers have access to a qualified and thriving workforce, ensuring America is a strong and competitive economy.
therefore, be it resolved that the Durham Public Schools Board of Education does hereby proclaim February 1st through 29th, 2024 as
Career and Technical Education Month, and urge all students and families to become familiar with the services and benefits offered by the career and technical education programs in Durham Public Schools and to support and participate in these programs to enhance their individual skills and productivity. Signed the 8th day of February, 2024.
Thank you so much.
thank you. Awesome. You rock. I wanted to use it as well. Oh, we need to, I will take a motion.
move approval of the proclamation for Career and Technical Education Month.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Rogers, seconded by Ms. Lewis and Ms. Valladares. And all those, is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, use the same sign. It approved. It is approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Okay. Now I will take a motion to go into
Madam
closed
Chair,
session. Yes.
might we have a few words of gratitude for Dr. King? I think he has stepped up and we just want to appreciate that and see if he has anything he wants to share with the Durham community.
Great.
I would just take a moment to say, first of all, thank you to the board for this opportunity. But then I'd just like to thank the staff at Durham Public Schools who have been working extremely hard to maintain, and that is to include folks in our schools and at central office who have been working diligently to maintain a focus on the education of our students through this difficult time. I appreciate being here. I'm continue to be excited about being a part of this team, and just thankful to be here, and look forward to continued efforts to work towards improving public education in Durham. So thank you again, board members.
Thank you. I had a comment.
Ms. Valladares.
I also want to thank you, Dr. King. You have, hit the ground running since getting here. Are you 90 days over now? Around that time, right? This has been a really rough week for all of us, a really rough week. And we also, I just want you to know something, that when Dr. Mubenga brought you here. He recommended you highly, right? And he set the groundwork for you to do the work that you do. He picked you. And I think we all yesterday just had a really intense day. Today, there's the opportunity that somebody Dr. Mubenga picked, to come and help us with this district. And you've been throwing down with the administration. I've seen you. We've been in subcommittee meetings with you. You have really taken time. And tonight, you did everything that was needed tonight, stepping in and saying, I hear you, board. Give me all the suggestions, details, community feedback that you're getting real time, every moment, every day, of every hour, and send it to me by this date, by this time. And that is going to consider the hard work that the administration is doing, and Sierra and Vicky Goff and everybody working till 11 o'clock at night. That's not sustainable. We don't want to burn you to the ground, but we want to be able to understand a little bit more. We just want the community. We just have to learn how to visualize it, how to put it in ways that people can see the vision and run with it, right? And see it. And so I just want to commend you, because many times on this board, another colleague of mine, Giovanni Lewis, has said, for such a time as this. And we are understanding what that means. And I just want you to know, you sitting there was something Dr. Mubenga maybe didn't know was going to happen, but he set you up to sit there, right? He set you up to be there, and you have hit the ground running, and we're going to continue to do what we have to do as a board. But just know we appreciate you being there tonight and sitting there tonight. It made a whole world of difference to hear your voice and for you to say, I hear you, board, but this administration needs to know that, you're not going to come with last minute things. Thank you, board member Giovanni Lewis, for calling us and holding us to that there's a lot coming at us every single day, every single moment, every single hour of every single minute in terms of feedback. But we also have to make sure our administration has time to do this. So thank you for your leadership tonight.
Yes, and with that, before we go to closed session to handle some of the personnel business, I want to move approval of the interim superintendent and contract.
Second.
Is there a
Haven't seen the
name
name.
that you wanted to bring forth
Yes.
Yes.
with your motion?
Caddy, can you say it?
Yes, we would like to bring, thank you, Ms. Lewis, for that motion. It's also been seconded. We would like to bring Kathy Moore as our interim superintendent. Thank you, Dr. King, so much for the work that you're doing for today, and continuing to have those duties assigned to you. She will begin on Monday, pending this vote. She is a retired educator, but has been known throughout for being a teacher first, even as she served as a superintendent in Wake County. And we're excited to have her leadership in this transition. So thank you, Ms. Lewis, for that motion. It's been seconded, I think, was that you, Ms. Chavez? All right.
To clarify, it's a motion to approve the contract
Yes.
for Dr. Moore. Thank you.
Yes, the motion was to approve the contract for Dr. Moore,
I'm sorry, for Ms. Moore.
Ms. Moore. All right. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please use the same sign. Passes unanimously.
Great.
I move that we go into closed session for the reasons stated on the agenda.
Second.
All right, that's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any other discussion? All right,
Follow-up items.
follow-up items, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We have 5 follow-up items. The first was what is the status of projects that are being implemented, supported through the Mackenzie Scott Grant? Second is to provide feedback from the comptroller on our financial status. The third would be to provide examples of what the increases would look like for all of the options. Staff would show how the 11, 12, and 15% change salaries from 22-23 and include examples in the presentation for February 22nd, as well as funding source for those options. There was a request to clearly see which employees are being impacted by the options or by those choices, and who looks to be impacted the most, and we would assign that to the comptroller to assist. And then board members have agreed to submit any additional items or questions or requests for information to the administration by Tuesday to prepare amply for the February 22nd board regular meeting. with flexibility.
Thank you so much. All right, and with that, we are, no,
You want to vote?
we are moving into closed session. All
Did
right,
we
thank you
vote?
so much.
Did
Did
we
we?
I don't think we voted.
Okay, all right, we have to vote. There's been a motion to move into closed session. It has been properly seconded
Yeah.
by Ms. Valladares. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed, use the same sign. It passes unanimously. We are now in closed session.
We are now back in open session. Dr. King.
Thank you, Chair Umstead. At this time, board members, we would ask for your approval of the personnel report, amended personnel report dated February 8th, 2024.
Move approval of the amended personnel report dated February 8th.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Byer and seconded by Ms. Chavez. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please use the same sign. All right, it passes 6-0. Thank you all. With that, we are adjourned.